So, is it just me, or does it feel like Call of Duty maps have gotten smaller? Like, there has been a massive uptick in the amount of what I'll call brain rot maps that are meant to throw all sense of tactics or even logic out the window and just be a meat grinder. And clearly people love them, considering that the most recent COD, Black Ops 6, launched with damn near a third of its maps so small that they could firmly fit inside a goldfish bowl. Like Payback, Babylon, Subsonic, Scud, and then that's before even getting into Nuketown, which we all knew was coming from the jump. I went through every single Call of Duty title and I tallied up the number of small or tiny maps in each game. And I put them on this very nice and easy to digest bar graph. Now, at the time of recording this, I didn't actually make this graph yet, but as you can see, I don't know, is it crazy? And this is all a byproduct of a phenomenon that I like to call the Takeover of Call of Duty. Those are all the working titles that I have right now. I don't know which one I'm going to go with. You let me know what should be the name of this video that you're watching right now. But to best understand where we are now, we need to understand where we came from. That's right, this isn't just a science video, this is a history video. And you know what? Now it's a math video. Checkmate, globalists. What? I'm gonna take you back to a mystical old game called COD 4, or Call of Duty for me, you, and everyone over the age of 17, wink. My personal first Call of Duty, and the birthplace of a lot of what makes Call of Duty, Call of Duty. Perks, kill streaks, custom classes, and 16 original maps that were just a mixed bag, to be honest. I mean, sure, you got some classics, right? Crash, Showdown, but then there's Strike. You know, where's Strike at? This was the era where devs would just cut and paste campaign levels and throw them into multiplayer to help beef out the map pool. Like Crossfire, which was pulled straight from the campaign mission War Pig, or Bog, which was also pulled from the campaign mission War Pig. In fact, you can even see where they meet. Isn't that neat? They also had a decent selection of small, medium, and large scale maps, meaning there was something for everybody aboard USS Call of Duty the 4th. But amongst all of that variety was a single multiplayer map that may end up being the single most influential of our time. I'm talking about Shipment. Now, chances are that if you're watching this video, you know all about Shipment. You've played it once or twice or far too many times. And that's because fast forward 20 years, and this map has been remade more times than there are actual mainline Call of Duty titles. I promise this time, I didn't make the graph, but I at least tallied them all up this time, all right? Jeez. Shipment was the smallest map ever seen. It was small, hectic, and completely broken to play on. And that's because it wasn't even supposed to be in the public build of the game, with devs from back then coming out and saying that it was really only meant for internal tests on their end. But it turns out that when they shipped the game, somebody accidentally left it unchecked on the list of maps that absolutely under no circumstances should ever see the light of day. A single gaffe that, and I speak with zero hyperbole here, altered the course of history. Shipment just became this accidental runaway success. This diamond in the rough that you would find randomly in public matches. And when it would actually come up in rotation, you and the rest of the lobby would cheer, knowing that they were about to triple the mortality rate of most actual wars. And from that point forward, almost every single game of the next decade would launch with a brand new A1 letterhead-sized chaos map. See, first was World at War with Dome, which, while not quite as small as Shipment, it was definitely in the same genre. Then, the following year, Rust would make its explosive debut and become an instant classic. What made Rust really stick out amongst all of the others was the addition of this giant tower that you could climb up on, jump off, and spin around, doing a new move that the kids were calling 360 no-scopes. And after Rust was possibly the most iconic of them all, Nuketown, which originated in Black Ops 1, then was remade in Black Ops 2, Black Ops 3, Black Ops 4, Black Ops Cold War, and of course, everybody's favorite, Black Ops Declassified. Then Modern Warfare 3 is where they really took it to the next level. First with its own teeny tiny map, Dome, which is not to be confused with the World at War Dome. So to avoid confusion, we will go ahead and call this one Dome 2 from here on out. Then MWIII also introduced a brand new mode called Face Off, which were these 3v3, 2v2, or sometimes even 1v1 cage matches on smaller scaled maps designed specifically for this mode. And compared to the maps that we'll get later, they're actually pretty dang spacious. And now, I only got to play 2 of these back in the day because the rest were all DLC, but man, it's one of my life's greatest regrets that I didn't get to experience some of these firsthand, because they look incredible. I mean, this one has a tornado in it. When was the last time that we saw a fucking tornado in a Call of Duty map? That shit's awesome, man. In 2013, Call of Duty Ghosts would mark the end of what most people would consider to be the golden age of Call of Duty. And their offering to the little G map gods was a little map called Strike Zone, which bared a striking resemblance to Dome 2, if you kind of spun around a few times and squinted your eyes. And so, you know what? I'm just gonna go ahead and call this map Dome 2A to avoid any confusion. Oh yeah, and they also remade Dome 2 again in the DLC season that year. So that'll be Dome 2B, I guess. Oh, and I actually forgot about this when I recorded the main part of this video, but there was also Free Fall in COD Ghosts, the pre-order bonus map that took place on a toppling skyscraper. But to be honest, the fact that I forgot about it fits, because nobody liked this map. It was dark. The layout would change, and so you never really got to learn it, or at least I never did. And I think it was also only in 24/7 playlists, but we'll get to that in a minute. Ghosts is also special in that it marks the very first time that Shipment itself was remade, in the form of Showtime, which has the exact same layout as Shipment, at least at first, because a minute into each game, a couple doors around the map will open up, revealing an outer donut that kind of circles the entire map, effectively doubling the play space to 2 saltine crackers. And Showtime perfectly sums up what the devs were doing with tiny maps during the golden age, because while Shipment itself was still too small for the game, map designers were starting to come around to it, just kind of testing things out and seeing how players would respond. And boy, let me tell you, players responded well, begging and pleading to get 24/7 playlists of whatever that game's chaos map was every time that there was a double XP weekend, making it this big event. It was a major to-do, okay? You put on your Sunday best, you slicked back your hair, and call into work dead, which, to be fair, was only half a lie, because oh boy was your KD about to suffer. Now, after the golden age was of course the Jetpack Era, defined by the jetpack on your back and the subsonic jet fuel coursing through your veins. And everything about this era was dialed up to 11. From the movement, to the gunplay, to the setting itself.
What you're seeing is advanced warfare.
But the sneakiest of come-ups of this era was the rise of microtransactions and macro grind sessions. See, times were changing, okay? Phones didn't have headphone jacks anymore. PlayStations got a new number next to them, and companies like Activision were after more than just the simple $60 up front that you paid while buying the game itself. Now, they wanted there to be a brand new reason for you to spend even more of your hard-earned money every time that you opened up the game. If you want to buff in zombies, you'd have to buy some liquid divinium and play some slots hoping for Perkaholic. Is there a brand new weapon blueprint just dominating every lobby you're in? Well, you better drop some cash to roll some loot boxes in the hopes to get it. Want a new custom skin? That'll be $2.99, please. Yeah, that's right. They actually were that cheap. That's Like I'd pay $2.99 today, Jesus, man. And so, to keep you playing the game, and ipso facto spending your money in the game, they needed to create a reason for you to keep playing the game. This is where camo grinding became a staple of the franchise, along with tons of other collectible skins, blueprints, emblems, and whatever else. You name it, they had it. And all of this came to a head in World War II. The game, not the conflict. We're not that far in the past, guys, Jesus. COD World War II offered a return to form, a grounded World War II game without jetpacks that fans have been aggressively asking for. But the slower boots-on-the-ground vibe began clashing with the audience's newfound speed addiction, as well as the game's growing need to keep you as engaged as possible to maximize revenue. And things really started to go downhill when Shipment re-entered the chat. This time, just as small and ugly as before, but with one key difference. Instead of being a map that you just randomly stumble upon in public matches, this was the first game to feature a Shipment 24/7 playlist at almost all times. And because it was always there, it started to feel like you were wasting your time playing any other playlist. Like, why risk ending up on a map like Gustav Cannon when you can just jump into Shipment 24/7 and be guaranteed to get through all your dailies in the same time it would have taken you to find a single other person on the other map? Rationally, you should want to play the game for more than just getting cheap cosmetics, but Shipment 24/7 was like the fast lane on a highway. You can either take it and get the coveted Chrome Tiger camo that much faster, or get stuck behind maps like St. Marie in the slow lane. And I don't care how much you love to drive, if you're at all goal-oriented, you're gonna be taking that fast lane, at least as much as you can possibly stomach. The choice basically became to eat your vegetables and live to a healthy old age full of pride and accomplishment, or to mainline Mountain Dew from birth. You might not live a long life, but damn will you live it to the fullest. Come on, kids, hop on Shipment 24/7. Really get that dopamine flooding in. What, you don't want to min-max your enjoyment? You think that's a dumb and unhealthy way of looking at what's supposed to be a hobby? Fucking nerd alert, get the fuck out of here. And from that point forward, this roller coaster just speeds on up, careening towards certain death. Ironically, with the adoption of the whole live service moniker, which meant that they were doubling down on creating the feeling that you had to play Call of Duty every single day, of every single week, of every single month, of every single year, otherwise you might miss out on fucking Hudson or whatever. God forbid you miss out on Hudson. What else? What are you gonna do? And make no mistake, this wasn't just Call of Duty adopting this, and honestly, it reaches completely outside of gaming, as I'm sure you know. In fact, most things around this time, if not a little bit before, started going after this attention economy. And now every single game, every single app, every single TV show is competing for as many of your limited hours on Earth as possible. And so long grinds and rewards became the forefront of most AAA live service titles. And when your game is based around these never-ending grind sessions, that only makes fast lanes like Shipment 24/7 that much more valuable. But there was hope, because Modern Warfare 2019 introduced two brand new game modes that were actually like the polar opposite of this Shipment scourge, although for two completely different reasons. And the first, of course, was Warzone, a brand new One Life Battle Royale mode taking place on the largest map in Call of Duty history, Verdansk. And the other was Gunfight, a highly competitive 2v2 mode without any respawns, with a heavy emphasis on tactical gameplay. And these two new modes were such a breath of fresh air, and so antithetical to the entire idea of this TikTokification of Call of Duty, that they just couldn't let that stand. Warzone, for instance, introduced a brand new mode called Resurgence, which was focused on quick respawns and took place on a brand new map called Rebirth Island, which might have been borrowed from Blackout the year before, which was already borrowed from Black Ops 2 Zombies a few years before that, which was also borrowed from the San Francisco Bay from, like 100 years ago. I don't know, when was Alcatraz built? And as for gunfight, the next game, Black Ops Cold War, did bring it back, but also reintroduced Face-Off back from MWIII, except now it was made up of 2 full 6-person teams on those gunfight maps. So let's just break it down real quick. The original MWIII had Face-Off, and in Face-Off, you would play 3 players versus 3 players, so a total of 6 people on the map. And to compensate, they designed maps that were about 50% the size of regular maps. Meanwhile, the new Face-Off now was 6 players versus 6 players, so a total of 12, taking place on maps that were designed for 2v2. So they were about a third the size of a standard core multiplayer map. And why did one number get bigger and the other number got smaller? Cold War's Face-Off mode is still some of the most hectic Call of Duty I have ever played, and that's 100% by design. It was no longer an accident like back in COD 4, this was deliberate. Some designer made this, showed this to their higher-ups, and they said, great job, here's a fucking pizza party. Meanwhile, Nuketown 24/7 and Shipment 24/7 swapped off, being 365 every other year. And during this time, most other 6v6 maps also started shrinking as well, with almost a complete drop-off on large-scale maps. And my favorite example of this is actually back in Cold War, when they brought back Zoo from the original Black Ops, but seemingly realized that it was too big for modern audiences, so they just kinda chopped half of it off and shipped it, thinking that no one would notice. And to be honest, not many people did. Okay, so I feel like I'm losing you a little bit, because this video it's a little bit big, it's long, it's girthy, it's another synonym that I only am putting in here to make the video even longer. Why am I doing that? So I'm just gonna kind of fast forward through the next few games or so in a, what's basically like a PowerPoint, just so that the edit isn't as crazy on this part. I hope you guys will forgive me. I am trying to get this out by the end of this year, which, please let me know if this comes out by the end of 2024, because that's the goal right now. Anyway, let's get into the next game. Now, next up was Call of Duty Vanguard, with a brand new tiny map, Das House, along with a recreation of Dome 1, which we'll call Dome 1A, to avoid confusion. And of course, Shipment had to make a return too, this time with a holiday version called Shipment, followed by another remake of Dome 2 now, which means that we're up to Dome 2C, right? Well, not quite, because I forgot to mention that Infinite Warfare had Genesis and Genesis Holiday, which both also shared this exact same layout. So those are actually Dome 2C and Dome 2C-H, respectively. And this new one will be Dome 2D, to avoid further confusion. Then there was also Beheaded, a tiny map that took inspiration from Cloverfield, a movie that everyone was talking about in 2021. And finally was Mayhem, which was not only a small map, but was also a small map. You get it? Anyway, Modern Warfare 22 is up next, with the infamous Season 1 offering of just Shipment and Shoot House again. Then there's another Dome 2, so we're up to Dome 2E now, to avoid confusion, plus Gunfight Face-Off was also back that year, with the maps Alley, Black Site, Exhibit, Lounge, Fight, Mercado, Penthouse, and King all added to the rotation. Oh, and there was also another Shipment, for good measure, I guess. And finally, in MW3 Redux, they launched with all original MW2 2009 maps, which meant that Rust was there off the bat. And pretty quickly, Shipment and Shoot House from the previous game also returned, along with the previous year's Dome 2E, that because it was a straight carry forward map, we'll go ahead and call Dome 2E-1 to avoid confusion, along with Alley, Exhibit, and Black Site also making a return. Although those those usually stayed out of 6v6 rotation and were actually just for 2v2 gunfight that year. But for those face-off fans, you needn't worry, because there was also a whole host of teeny tiny DLC maps that year, including Stash House and Das House again, plus Ink House and Das Gross, which were variants of the aforementioned two maps. Then you had Meat, Training Facility, Get High, and a handful of not quite tiny maps, but they were in the constant small map playlist, like Emergency, Grow House, and Checkpoint, which were all about the same size of Nuketown, by the way. Oh, and there were also like 6 different versions of Shipment this year too, because you know, why the fuck not at that point? Are you feeling engaged yet, everybody? And that brings us to the most recent Call of Duty release, Black Ops 6, which continues the trend of face-off being a core staple of the game, going as far as even including it in the beta so that you could grind through all 30 levels in a record-breaking 12.5 minutes. And of course, because it's a Treyarch game, that means that Nuketown 24/7 has also returned. But this time, actually swapping out with what's probably the smallest map ever created in maybe any video game ever, Stakeout. And beyond those specifically designed small map modes, we also saw a huge uptick in the amount of tiny maps in regular rotation. Like back in the day, a map like Babylon or Subsonic would be hailed as this game's Rust or Shipment, but instead they just fall in line with the rest of the quote-unquote small maps that are the size of a postage stamp, to the point that that fast lane isn't just an option, it's the option. Like, it's actually insane going back and just watching older Call of Duty gameplay from back in the day and realizing that it actually played a lot slower than you remember. And in that way, Call of Duty mirrors the rest of the world, speeding the hell up. Can't be bothered to read a headline? Well, just take a look at the picture and that'll do. You'll get the gist. Everything from software to company logos have been stripped of personality and function to be streamlined but surface level. Don't have time to write an email to your boss asking for the week off to grind Call of Duty camos? Just have an AI do it. I mean, shit, you'll probably get an AI-generated response right on back. And now, I've never been one to really go for these big completionist challenges. But back in MW22, I wanted to challenge myself, and I went for Orion, the camo that you unlock if you unlock all of the other camos in the game, like a big pyramid scheme. And you know what? It took me like 10 months, but I did get it. And when writing this video, I realized that I haven't played Call of Duty in probably about a week, which is unlike me as someone who has played this game almost religiously for a decade and a half. And so I thought back to the last time that I was super invested in Call of Duty, and it was during MW22, going for that mastery camo. And so I thought, hey, maybe I should do it again. But thankfully, before I did that, I went back to where I actually unlocked the camo live on stream. And to be honest, it was a little underwhelming. I mean, sure, when I got the final headshot, I was smiling, but how much of that was actual joy and not just fabricated to make myself think that it was actually worth the 219 hours of my life that I spent to get it? That's right. 219 hours that I will never get back. 219 hours of just mindless grinding for grinding's sake. And at the end of it all, I ended the stream 15 minutes later and never touched the damn game again. And you want to know the kicker? The last 15 minutes of the stream was doing a victory lap on Shipment. I started to realize that I don't go on social media to see what my friends are up to anymore. Now I do it just out of habit, doom scrolling the day away, and hoping that it'll somehow give me the motivation to actually get out there and live my life. But it doesn't. I realized that I can't properly eat a meal without finding the perfect show or podcast to listen to first, because God forbid that I be alone with my thoughts for more than 15 and a half seconds. I caught myself putting every ounce of creativity that I have into a single YouTube video, but then end up cutting so much of it out to appease the YouTube algorithm gods that it doesn't even resemble what it was supposed to be in the first place. Maybe I'm a perfectionist, and that's why I need to be driven by long-term goals in order to be happy. But fuck 50 years from now, if you asked me today what my life's greatest accomplishments were, grinding out a goddamn mastery camo in Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 2022 by pissing away weeks of my life on a too small shipping yard wouldn't even crack the top 100. So maybe I don't need to pick up that controller. I don't need to find a reason to play a video game. And maybe if you're at the point that you're asking if there's enough of a reason to want to play your game, then you already know the answer. You want to know why my sub feed is full of nothing but Call of Duty is dead videos? It's because this practice of engagement farming, this attention economy, only attracts negative attention. They did this to themselves. You are so focused on how to maximize engagement that you didn't realize you forgot to make it fun. And man, I miss having fun. Anyway, that's where I'll end the video. Thank you so much for watching. If you made it this far, I really appreciate you. And I'll be back when I feel like it.